Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Harry Kimpel, presenting the topic. It's game time at DevDays. Learn observability concepts and techniques and play a video game at the same time.
All right. Thank you for having me. I hope you all had a good lunch, energized, because, we will use that energy to play a little of a game today. So welcome. This talk is all about, playing a game, having a little fun, and, learning observability concepts at the same time. I hope this is interesting for you. My name is Harry. I'm based in Germany, southern Germany, in Bavaria. And I'm glad to be here. First time in Vilnius, so quite excited to be here. So when I think about monitoring, or the new buzzword, observability, for me it's always about kind of like that car cockpit, right? Where you see your gauges, you see how fast you're going, how many issues you may have when you need to go to the service again, and so on. But it's not only in the case of a failure that you need to know what is going on. You always want to know, how am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Is there any issue? Do I need to hit the gas station, and so on? So all of this information is really important for me to kind of like observe what is happening in my car, but also for which we hear about is like for software, right? And so I'm from Relic. I will show a little bit of our concept of what we can do like in such a gaming situation, how we can monitor that. But I have something also at the end. You may have heard about the term open telemetry, which I'll also focus on, which is kind of like a vendor-neutral approach, an open source project that I can also share. Relic basically is a gigantic, telemetry time series database that ingests any type of data into our backend. You typically have, applications, you have digital experiences like, real user monitoring, your apps like iOS and Android apps that you can monitor and observe, your environment, your infrastructure. And we have various kinds of APIs in place that you can also use, in case there's no standard integration, you can also use that to, ingest any type of data. So really, Relic, pure SaaS service, but, gigantic telemetry database that you can use. Various types of integrations. All right, but this is not what we are here for today. I thought, it would be great to have like a really interesting approach and, not the typical, eShop architecture that you can use to observe all your microservices and stuff like that, which is also useful. It shows the concept, right? But what we're here today is kind of like I wanted to show a little game. Maybe some of you who are a little bit older, like maybe me, remember this. This is a game called Dangerous Dave, which we adapted. We kind of like, some people forked it as a little Python application. And we, adopted that and used that as to showcase, what we can do with such an application. It is not the typical, web application with like a web front end. So there are some challenges if, you don't have like a front end, web front end that serves HTTP requests back and forth. So, but we will go through this and I will show you, how to get this done. The objective, so what is it that I want to show you in that little game? We will use APM, application performance monitoring, to show you, how to, maybe ingest and, observe different methods of that game. So of course that game is also implemented. It has various kinds of methods and that you can use to, show the screen, and, move the player and stuff. All of this is something we will observe. Logs, typically, the telemetry data that you collect in an application is, metrics, events, logs, and traces. Logs is, of course, also something I'll use a standard logging framework within that Python app that we also use to send in any logging information from within that game. And then also some custom events. Custom events in the Relic term is basically just a point in, an event, an attribute in time that you, maybe want to send in. It is typically used in a more traditional scenario, like imagine a retail application where your customers can put something into the cart, and you can add some additional custom attributes like maybe the product ID or some other things that you care about, and maybe that help you then analyze in future if you have an incident or you have an issue to observe what is happening. And then finally we will visualize all of this information in a dashboard to show you what all of this looks like. So basically we want to get from here on the left hand side the game into like a custom dashboard that we'll build throughout this session as well. This is, a hands-on session. If you want to play along with me, this is the link to the repository. There's some, guidance and some README as well. If you have a Relic account, you can use that directly and play around with it. There's some, install instructions on how to get started. It is pretty, only a couple steps that you need to do. But if you want to follow along, this is the link to the repository that I'm using also as part of this talk today. All right. Why is there some manual intervention needed? Typically, we as New Relic, we also try to make it really easy to get started. So we have typically some guided install. You can use the UI to do click, 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 and then you get like some instructions on what it is you need to do with your application, your infrastructure, whatever it is you want to instrument. But in this case today, it is not that easy, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And then, if the guided install, the typical getting started guide is not helpful, in Relic, we provide also some APIs, some SDKs that you can use to inside of your applications to do some custom instrumentation. All right. With that, let's get started. I will switch back and forth. I have, my Visual Studio code environment here and my terminal where I will run the application. But basically, the first thing that I need to do, this is kind of like a custom, Python backend application. So our agent, will not discover anything automatically. So what is it? What is it that we need to do? So if we install the agent, it is basically, in this case, it's a pip package that you can install. We need to register the application inside of the code, right? So how does that look like? I have the repository up and running here in my Visual Studio code environment. The main file that is, most importantly, is this main_fun.py. And you can see, I have various branches that I prepared, and just to make it easier. So the first thing that I need to do is kind of like importing that agent. It's a package that we're using, and then there's some form of configuration that I can apply. In general, all of the Relic agents, or also other forms of agents like OpenTelemetry, they allow some kind of configuration, and for us it's the same thing. There's this relic.ini file that I can use to customize what it is I want to monitor. I can give it, like, most importantly, a name, right? How do I want to see that application in my telemetry backend and so on. And in general, we have to use some kind of license key. Of course, you need to send in the data. Our API expects to have some kind of API key. So we did the import. I added the initialize stage with the ini file, and then all the way at the bottom, we have a couple things that I can do here. And this is kind of like I'm registering the application, which means kind of like that I'm sending a request to my telemetry backend, in this case our Relic backend application, and say, hey, someone wants to register an application. I want to send in telemetry, and this is the target where all the telemetry, like the logs, metrics, traces, and so on, should go. So if I would start this application right now, it should work quite fine. So I can start it with the Python 3 command. You can see that similar to what they had on the screen. I can play along with that game, collect any items, typical jump and run game. If I collect the crone, I can then go to the door, go to the next level. So this is basically the game that we're looking at. All right. So like I said, right now I would maybe see the application, being registered, but I don't see any data. And this is where then the next step comes in, where we need to actually identify some background tasks. And the Relic SDK that we're using here has some ways on how to annotate these methods in your code. And you will see some add Relic.agent background task, which basically tells the agent that hey, there's something happening here that we want to get more details about. So going back into my code here, there's a couple methods here. You can see there's the title screen and some other methods. If I just now enable this, for example, and start up the application again, you can see now the agent is starting up. It is telling me that it is reporting data to this specific entity. I can then click around, again play the game like I did before. Great, right? So now what should happen is that this specific method that show title screen should already show up in my backend. And let's quickly validate this. So this is my New Relic account, my playground. I can see the data-driven Dave entity. Everything in the New Relic platform is an entity. So this is an entity for a APM, so for an application. Don't worry about this this red indicator. I have set up some strange alert conditions that are messing around with me here. But basically, this screen then shows the most important metrics that I should be interested in. And then if I go into the transactions tab, I should see, maybe it takes a couple minutes, depending also upon how fast the Wi-Fi is here. But I should see at least the show title screen as a transaction that I'm observing from my game in New Relic. Let me quickly validate this. If I do a refresh, it should come up in a couple seconds. Okay, maybe the demo gods are not with me. Anyhow, let me finish this. I don't want to go through all the methods in that code to enable it. So what I did here is I already prepared. Let me get this out of the way. I already prepared a custom branch. Let me get rid of these changes. So git check out custom instrumentation. So now if I go back into my file here, it didn't change the branch. I have oh yeah, live typing on stage. Interesting. So, okay, so now I changed it, and you will see if I go through this again, you can look at the repository. It has all the background tasks enabled now. Let me go ahead and run this again, which will hopefully bring up some additional data in my application. So let me play around with this. You can already see, then this is also something you may notice. It is slightly slower, right? Because I'm doing a lot of things as custom tasks, and you can slow down your application quite significantly if you over instrument the application. But anyhow, just for the purposes of this talk, let me refresh the screen. I should probably go ahead and close this. All right, so now you can see there's the show title screen from before. And if we wait a couple more minutes, we will show all the other transactions that are being identified. I can look at the performance over time, of how good or bad was the performance, how long did it take to execute that task? Did I see any errors, the throughput, how many people or users, gamers are interacting with my app. So quite nice. I have a lot of information already. The reason why I closed down the application is because if I go back in here, if I just stop the application, use Control-C to exit the process, the collector, the agent, will not be able to actually send the data that it collected locally on my machine to our backend. And this is what you can also do is you can tell the agent that at shutdown of the application, I want to do a final push of all the metrics that we collected. Typically in like a 1-minute window, we will collect all the traces, metrics, logs, and so on, and then send it off to the backend. And this is a configuration that you can use to basically tell the agent to, hey, shut down, have a grace period, and then it should go and collect all the data. This is also something, if I go all the way back to the bottom of this, which I enabled here. So at shutdown, I want to gracefully shut down the agent and not that it is like killed and not being able to send the data. All right. This is great. So let's, we have some data. We have a lot of transactions, hopefully now as well. If I go back into my transactions tab, we should see a lot of more. And of course, I'm still not seeing it. Let me refresh. So we should see a lot of additional transactions that we see, and I can dive deeper into what are the most active transactions, how many did receive the most traffic, how often are these transactions called, and so on. Come on. Here you go. So now, as you can see, there's a print map function, show title screen, show interaction. I can, focus on what are the most time-consuming methods within my application. If I want to switch over and see what have the highest error rates, or what are, the ones that receive the most requests. So what are the transactions that are being called the most? This one here, check player collision. This is basically whenever I move the player, it checks for, am I hitting a wall or anything in the game, right? So this is quite nice. I have some data already here, which is looking good. So the next step, what we want to do is, I also, of course, in typical applications, we have a lot of logs, right? Developers like to, write out some line of logs. I'm here in this code. I'm here. This is some, maybe exception that I'm seeing. I want to, see the trace, the stack trace of this trace. So I can send in a lot of data, and of course also the application performance monitoring, the agent that we use allows to also collect the logs from typical logging frameworks that you use. For .NET, .java, for Python, they all have their typical logging SDKs, their logging frameworks. And what we do is kind of like we interact with these default frameworks so that we can collect also the logs from the application. How is this done? It is basically just a configuration change. For me, we have seen the Relic.ini file earlier, and for me, it's just a matter of enabling the collection of the logs within the application. So now what the agent does is, if you see any log.info, log.error message within my application, I can simply use the same logging framework that I'm already using. But the agent will now collect all these statements. Like there's a basic configuration. I can tell it to collect only info logs, hopefully not any debug logs in production, which will be probably a mess. But also some custom things like the game has started, the game has ended, and what was the score I achieved in my game. So again, let's go back into the code here. And as you can see, there's some, log statements already prepared in here. The game ended with a certain score. I can collect this score and send also this information into my environment. And there isn't really something else that I need to do in order to collect the logs. Like I mentioned, in the New Relic ini file, there is if I can type, there's just this configuration. I can allow it to collect the logs, yes or no, and this is an option that I have. Let me, did I make any changes to this code? I don't think so. So let me check out the logging. Check out logging branch, which again has enabled all the logging. Okay, I did change, yeah. So, and what happens now is if I, again, start up the application, it will show me, again, some nice information. about the game. It'll collect. You can see in the output here as well. I'm outputting this into the console as well. Some sample, just some sample logging information like an info, warning, and error statement that you can see here. And if I now jump around, I can again play that game. Right, nice. Okay, go ahead. Let me shut this down one more time. And then, in the backend, oops, I'm sorry. In my backend, what we try to do is always, put things in context. So I have the application which is collecting, traces, or information from my methods and transactions. But we also, try to bring all the things together. Same is also for the logs, right? So we have a section here for logs, and you can see I'm sending in, logs, and this is kind of like the different logging levels that we see with different, color coding and stuff like that. So quite nice. I collected all the logs. I even have, if I do this again, I should see also, did I end the game? I did. I should also have seen a statement about, what is the score that I received, as we have seen in the code. For some reason, I'm not seeing that. Let me try this one more time. Oh, excuse me. So in this case, I only, maybe have a couple, score of 200. And once I end it, I see the statement in here. And this is also something that I, should see in a second in the UI. All right. But this is, not it. Like, we don't want to stop here. We can visualize the logs in the platform. We can even, put these also onto a dashboard to visualize it in context with other types of information. But there's more that we can do in the game that we see here. Like I mentioned earlier, an event is just a discrete occurrence of something that has happened in the code. But what does it actually mean, and how could that be used in that game that I'm just showing you? So let's have a look at what this could mean. So consider like the following use case I have. You've seen I collected the crown. I went to the next level. Maybe I want to collect that event that someone entered to the next level, and I maybe want to see what was the score that he received. And in this case, this is basically I'm defining just an event type. So this could be any custom event type that I think would be meaningful for me. In this case, I'm sending in a level up event, and I'm just passing in some JSON. So the JSON just contains the current level that the player reached, and also the score from one level to the next level that we received. And then at the bottom you see that statement, which is again like an agent API call that we can use. The Relic agent record custom event. I pass in the event type, the parameter, the JSON, and basically assign it to the application that we registered at the beginning of the course. Another example, if I completing the game, similar to what we have seen in the logging statement, where we can see, what was the final score that the player received. Again, I'm, defining the event type, passing in some JSON, like the current level and the total player score. And then what's nice is that I can then, visualize all this information maybe in a custom dashboard along with other data. Maybe I want to see, maybe did any gamers have a good experience playing the game or reaching a high level if the application was behaving fast and things like that. So all of this can be then visualized in such a custom dashboard, or even like in a table format. We'll see this in a second in the dashboard. So an example, again, I have prepared this over here. This is the game complete section. If I save this, it should auto format. It doesn't like it. Okay. And this is exactly what we have seen on the slide. Again, now if I'm ending the game, I'm sending in this custom event to New Relic as a custom data point. Let me remove this quickly. And where's my git checkout. Custom events. Oh, I didn't like it. It's really hard to type here on stage. Here you go. Let's bring up the game one more time. And now what we did as well in the game is, whenever I collect, such an item here, I'm also sending this in as a custom event, right? So I'm collecting, these diamonds. I'm collecting, hopefully, the crown and so on, the heart. So all of this is now also registered as a custom event that I can then visualize in my platform. Let me go to the next level just for you to see also what the next level looks like. Okay, great. I can die here as well. Okay. Let's have a look into the backend. So what we typically looking at is kind of like, this is a curated UI for application performance monitoring. If you use like agents, New Relic agents, or OpenTelemetry, we try to show you what is the most important metrics that anyone should look at. This is a pure SaaS service, so this is the same for all the customers. But the nice thing is in here that all of the telemetry that we're collecting is available as in the raw format. So I can, for example, I could, just the query that I had up on the screen. This is kind of like, this is, a language we call NURQL, New Relic query language, similar to SQL. You can see it looks pretty similar if you're familiar with SQL. From transaction, select, count star, facet by name. Facet is basically a group by in select in SQL. So now you can see what are all the, and I can visualize this a little bit differently, maybe as a bar chart. So now I can see which of these transactions that we have seen earlier had received the most requests, which method was used the most within my game. And you can still, again, see the check player collision is one of the events. But if I change this, and now if the demo gods are with me, we should see some custom events, collected item, for example. This is the one. Let me just output this as a table. So now you can see, all the data from this custom event that we have specified. I can see, the item that I collected. Is it an equipment? The item ID, is it just a plain item or a trophy? The item score that is associated in that game with that component, and also the item type. I can see the level number and so on. So this is the raw data that I have available for me to play around, put it on a custom dashboard, or use it in a way that makes sense for me. How much time do I have until the bottom? Oh, 15 minutes. Thank you. All right. So all of this, is ideally something that I can use in a combined view. And how do I do that? We can, in the Relic, we allow you to add basically any type of data. This could be a custom event. This could be events from your telemetry, like traces, metrics from your applications, onto such a dashboard. We can even, we've seen how you can, also, look at logs. Logs for us is basically just another event type that you can visualize also on a screen. And this is not what I wanted to show yet. But if I go back into the platform, the New Relic UI, what I did and what is part of the repository as well, which you can use as a, if you want to look at it, it also contains this game stats JSON, which is basically just a JSON representation of such a dashboard. Let me make this a little bigger. And so it basically, is a representation. You can copy paste that JSON into a New Relic account, and then go into the dashboard section, use that to import the dashboard. I already did that already. So now I can look at this custom dashboard that we have created. It shows me some high-level information, like a screenshot of the game. Nice. I can see how often has the game been played, what was the highest score that I received, the maximum level that I reached. I'm, probably not the best player. I should have a 10 out of 10, but anyhow. And then you can see what was the top score by level, what was the items that I collected. I can visualize all of this in a nice way to also show me, even the logs here. So it basically brings all the information together for me to visualize what is most important for me. And in general, this would probably be maybe something for my, my business owners, for management team, where I can, build a custom dashboard like that to show you, the data in a more meaningful way for maybe for your other personas that you're dealing with. So what we have seen so far is kind of like, our Relic agent, how to configure this for the transactions, for the logging, and for the some custom events that are important for my game. But I also did the effort and kind of like instrumented that same game using OpenTelemetry. Like I said, OpenTelemetry is an open standard. It kind of like is a vendor-neutral implementation from, based on a CNCF project. This QR code will bring you to a different repository that has the OpenTelemetry instrumentation, all of the things that we have just seen for the traces, for the background tasks, for the logging, and for some custom events, also implemented with OpenTelemetry. In that case, it uses some slightly different commands to spin up the application. So I'm again using my license key for the API that we're using in Relic, and then this is very Python specific. OpenTelemetry allows to bootstrap your application doing install, and then I can spin up the application using a command called OpenTelemetry-instrument. And what you see as parameters to that command is kind of like, do I want to capture traces? Do I want to capture metrics and logs and so on? And I can decide and pick and choose where do I want to send each of the different telemetry information into. I could say the logs go maybe into some Elastic, the traces go into some observability backend. So I have full control over what is happening. And I showed it yesterday in the talk where OpenTelemetry also allows you to have or to configure a pipeline that runs alongside your application, which you can then use to do some more interesting things like I can batch the telemetry, I can maybe obfuscate on the local environment that I'm using where the application runs. I can say maybe in that pipeline as well, maybe do I want to forward the debug logs, or do I just want to have info logs? So this is something that I can use already in that pipeline to define what is happening. And then again, I give it a name, and then Relic provides an OTLP endpoint. OTLP stands for Open Telemetry Line Protocol, which is basically an open endpoint, an open API that you can use to send in any type of OpenTelemetry data. And then I'm just using again the Python command at the end to start up the game. But this is the way on how you can use that with OpenTelemetry. So a really interesting way, in my opinion, will be the future of application performance monitoring or infrastructure monitoring, because it has a lot of benefits from no vendor login. It's vendor agnostic, and you can use it to instrument once and use it and send the data wherever you think it makes sense for you today. And with that, that was it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a little bit fun to use that in a gaming approach. Any questions?
Yes, we have one question. What is the strongest argument to switch from Prometheus, Kibana from free solutions to New Relic?
Okay, good question. So some of the open source solutions that you typically use, you have to manage them yourself, and you have to have infrastructure. If you have like an Elk stack for your logging, if you have Elasticsearch or any Prometheus environment using Grafana, it's one thing to basically put this in place, but you have to manage it. You have to have resources to deal with it. It's not like something you spin up and don't touch again. New Relic is a fully managed SaaS service. You don't need to take care of all the things. It scales with your applications. We have huge customers who send in millions of data points per second, and the backend just scales gigantically. So it's a choice, right? Do I want to take care of this in my own premises, or do I want to rely on a managed service like New Relic? Any other questions?
Sorry. Okay, seems that it was really nice and amazing presentation. Thank you. And it was the last presentation in this hall. So big applause to our speaker.
Thank you.
And a small gift from us.
Oh,
So,
thank you so much. Thank you.